Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Cade, and only one thing could pull me away from just absolutely binging my way through Season 7 of F1 Drive to Survive, which dropped today around the world, and that is Sports Saturday. We are at Week 13. Here in Season 2 on Sega Sports NFL 2K2 of creating our New England Patriots dynasty without the existence of Tom Brady. And last week was a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be. It came down to the wire, and a clutch field goal from Adam Vinatieri, as he did all throughout his career, as we squeaked by the Dallas Cowboys 17-14. Our winning streak is still alive, but our scoreless streak has obviously come to a close. Well, there's a really good opportunity that we're going to get a new one going this week, as we will take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Without further ado, let's get cracking. Your 2002 Cincinnati Bengals. It was their 35th season. It was their second and final season under head coach and future Hall of Famer Dick LeBeau, who is still one of the great NFL defensive coordinators of all time. They went 2-14 in 02. They were the worst team in the league this year. They lost by an average of 19 points a game. They didn't get their first win of the year until Week 8, when they beat the expansion Houston Texans 38-3. They would lose their next 6 games to fall to 1-13, and then in their final home game, they would stun the New Orleans Saints 20-13. By finishing at the bottom of the NFL. Of course, that gave them the first pick of the draft in 2003, and they would find a guy named Carson Palmer at a USC. They also fired LeBeau and hired Marvin Lewis for what was going to be a fairly successful resurgence for the team. I mean, there's nowhere to go from up, but up when you're 2-14. And they managed to add a couple of quasi-decent off-season acquisitions. They brought in Gus Frerotte as a backup quarterback. They also had a Michael Westbrook, who is a very notorious and controversial wide receiver when he was with Washington. And then they added cornerback Jeff Burris. Aside from the draft, getting Carson Palmer in 02, they didn't get anybody of quality at all. Their first round draft pick was offensive tackle Levi Jones, and he played with Cincinnati from 2002 to 2008. Then he went to Washington, and then he retired. But he was not a standout player by any stretch. And as is the mode for the Bengals, that's most people nowadays who are used to seeing them winning with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor, and having had Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase. You know, the fact that they had managed to go to the Super Bowl in the last 5 years, if you had told people in Cincinnati back in 2002 that was going to be even a remote option for them, they would have said, put down whatever lager it is you are currently consuming. Because that's just not what they had the capability to do. So we have John Kitna, the Mad Midnight Bomber, what bombs at midnight, as our quarterback today, and clock-killing Corey Dillon. This is before he went to the Patriots a couple years later and helped them win a couple of Super Bowls during their first dynasty run. All at the 36-yard line. And they also had guys like Lorenzo Neal, who was a really good, solid fullback for a couple of teams for at least a decade. And then they also had guys like Willie Anderson on the offensive line, who was a really standout lineman for a number of years. If I remember right, he replaced Anthony Munoz, who is still arguably the best Cincinnati Bengals draft pick of all time. And he was a future Hall of Famer. But this team also had TJ Houshmandzadeh and a guy named Chad Johnson, later known as Chad Ochocinco, as wide receivers. And that's Lorenzo Neal doing what a fullback should do, busting through the line and picking up the first down.
Job there, leaping over his man at just the right time to keep from being tackled. You know, the athleticism.
But the other thing about this team was that this was the last year they had one of the more moribund NFL draft picks in the early 21st century, or in the late 20th century, I should say, of one Akili Smith. Smith was drafted in that snake-bitten draft of 1998, where everybody thought it was going to be the revamp of the famous 1983 draft, where it was Akili Smith, Tim Couch, Cade McNown. There were all these quarterbacks who went so high in the draft. And it was a year in which 5 NFL quarterbacks were taken in that first round. Tim Couch went first.
Third and 10.
And I'll get to the rest of them here in a second. And we got a flag on the play. So it's false start in the offense. So going back to that 99 draft, it was Tim Couch who went first to the Cleveland Browns. Donovan McNabb went second to the Eagles. And of all the quarterbacks taken, he was the only one who had a serviceable career. Akili Smith went third to the Bengals. Edgerrin James went fourth to the Colts. Obviously, he went on to become a future Hall of Famer and one of the best running backs, multi-purpose running backs of his era, especially when you paired him with Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning. The 99 draft is also known for when the New Orleans Saints traded everything they had to get Ricky Williams.
They forced a fourth down situation early.
Then you have guys like Torrey Holt, who won a Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams. Champ Bailey, who went on to be a Hall of Famer. He was drafted by Washington. David Boston, who had a very scandalous and underwhelming career, basically because he was artificially inflated out the kazoo. But he was seen as a can't-miss prospect. We're fighting for yardage here. And then Dante Culpepper out of that class of quarterbacks was the only one, aside from McNabb, who even showed a lick of serviceable talent that carried him when he was drafted by the Vikings.
The Patriots are on the field, and we'll see if they can put some points on the board.
Where he helped kind of get Randy Moss's career off the ground. So first and 10 for us. And after all that running around, we only pick up 4. Should also be noted in this draft that the New England Patriots, with their first pick, took Andy Katzenmoyer out of the Ohio State, who you may have seen a couple of times on this game, because he's still in my linebacking core. He didn't last long. Injuries basically ended up derailing his career before it really got going. Picked off! So we were trying to avoid the sack, trying to throw the slant route.
He showed some great instincts there to figure out where the pass was
and the linebacker just stepped in and went, "Thank you, I will take that." And now it's first and 10 for the Bungles at our 23-yard line. And yes, I said the Bungles. Because if you know the history of the Cincinnati Bengals, that name was well earned throughout the 90s and the 2000s. because Mike Brown was is such a parsimonious and cheap owner, and parsimonious is basically just another way of saying tight-fisted with his money. He didn't spend money to staff his team. And he always tended to get the bottom of the barrel of coaches. That's not to say that Dick LeBeau was a bad coach. It was that he just was not meant to really be a head coach. And I've heard this said a million times, is that not every coordinator is meant to be a coach. You'll know when you talk to somebody if they've got the chops to be a head coach. Because you got to be able to handle a lot more stuff. Like I said, Dick LeBeau, if you look at what he did with the Steelers, with the Lions, you know, he'd been around the league a long time as a defensive coordinator, a linebackers coach, a secondary coach. He was excellent at that.
Yeah, and you know, you keep hitting the D like that, and pretty soon you're going to break through.
And some coaches, unfortunately, fall under the purview of having to deal with substandard talent and bad ownership. And that can befall a coach's career as much as anything. There's only so much a coach can do, just like there's only so much that players can do.
The Bengals have been remarkably consistent in their offense this game. Consistently unsuccessful.
Yeah, well, you're being characteristically blunt, Peter, but you're also
So it's 4th and 9. They're going to go for the field goal here.
Throwing it, they've tried running it, and nothing has worked. Cunningham lines up for the first quarter lead.
This will be about a 36-yarder.
There's the kick.
And it is good. So the Cardinals are on the, the Bengals are on the board.
Concentration on those medium-range shots.
Yep, you're far enough
Thanks to the 4-yard field goal by Cunningham. So it's 3-0
Not
Cincinnati.
so far that your teammates are going to forgive you if you muff it.
The Bengals put the first points of the game on the board. 3-0. Cunningham.
And we're going to have to recoup from that turnover. But unfortunately, Drew Bledsoe forgot he's supposed to be throwing to the guys in the white jerseys and not the black ones.
The Patriots are raring to put some points on the board. When you give it up like they did last time, you want to rebound fast and hard.
So it's 1st and 10. Nearest makes no difference at the 20-yard line with 1:06 to go in the first quarter.
Nails him in the backfield and makes a great tackle to push them back.
Brian Simmons is really...
Now, the question I have to check really quick is, do we still have this on... No, it's on standard difficulty. Okay.
Ball at the 19-yard line.
And we got offsides. So both the offensive and defensive line for Cincinnati cannot hold still. That helps us out as it moves us up 5 yards.
Came across the line before the snap, and that'll draw the offside call.
Ball at the 24-yard line.
So now it's 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 11. And we go to Troy Brown and his banner down. And we pick up the first down with about 30 seconds to go in the first quarter.
Delivers a big play with a monster catch. That's a first down with some style.
But let's see if we can get the running game going, because we need that. We only gain a yard. And that will likely be the final play of the first quarter.
Ball at the 42-yard line.
It is 15 minutes in the books, 45 to go here in Cincinnati. And it's 3-0 Bengals.
Ball on the 42.
The funny thing about Cincinnati is when I was a kid and I was first learning about football, the Bengals were actually good enough to go to the Super Bowl. The first Super Bowl I remember watching was Joe Montana's and Bill Walsh's first Super Bowl win with the 49ers against Sam Weish and the Bengals. If I remember right, I think that was Super Bowl 19? It was 16 or 19. So it's 3rd and 9.
Ball on the 42.
See if we can make this corner route work again and avoid the turnover. And this time it does work, and we move the chains, and we're at midfield.
Nice job on 3rd down.
Charles Johnson capitalized on the completion, driving forward for the first.
It was Super Bowl 16 now that I look at it, because yes, it was the year after
Ball at the 49-yard line.
the Raiders beat the Eagles, which was 1980, so that makes it 81. I was all of 4. We find Brown right up the middle.
Troy Brown had more interference than a cell phone in the Lincoln Tunnel, but he still managed to make the catch, Dan.
It seemed really risky to throw to him with that much coverage, Peter, but apparently they knew he
All right, 1st and 10 as we're getting close to the Cincinnati red zone. And now Redmond driving ahead into KO Spikes, who would be later on a New England Patriot.
He didn't get the first, but leaves his team in
It was actually one of the better all-around linebackers of his time.
They are in the driver's seat.
He was one of those guys that, along with Ray Lewis back in the early aughts, when you saw him line up across from you, you were like, okay, let's keep an eye on him. And Redmond plows ahead, gives us the 1st down. And we're at the 16-yard line.
They know they can count on him to make those crucial conversions. Nothing flashy, just good football. It's 1st and 10.
All right, see if we can get on the board here. And that's going to be interference, which is going to put us right at the 1-yard line. So we spot of the penalty, 1st and goal at the goal line. That's what it used to be.
Gets himself into some hot water with that defensive interference call. It's a fine line, but he stepped way over it.
So the flag sets us up on the doorstep with 3:11 to go, and Redmond will walk it on in, and we are on the board, 6-3 with the extra point coming up.
Ahead for the joy of 6 on that play. That's solid no-frills football, baby.
I like that, the joy of 6.
So we'll kick the point after. Like I said, that pretty much everything I was doing when I was not on work today was getting stuck into the weeds watching the new season of Formula One Drive to Survive. Because I am very much looking forward to when the new season starts in a couple of weeks. Actually, it starts next week in Australia. And I'm glad that it's back in Australia. That's usually where the season would start. Would be down under in, it used to be in Adelaide. Now they've run it for the last couple of years in Melbourne at Albert Park.
Lines up for the kickoff.
But all things considered, this is shaping up to be a potentially cracking F1 season. If you're into that sort of thing, which I am. And I make no apologies for it.
The Bengals offed it up last time. Let's see if they've taken a losage and can hang on to the football.
So it's 1st and 10 at the Cincinnati 20 with 3:05 to go in the half. We got the lead. We go back to Dillon. He's got 5 carries for 12 yards. The reason why they call him clock-killing Corey Dillon should be self-explanatory. when you're wanting to run time off the clock and have a guy who can consistently pick up enough yardage to move the chains, he was the guy that Cincinnati went to. And it was because he still had the capability to do that that Bill Belichick decided he was worth bringing in as a free agent.
Really disappointing.
Because the Patriots didn't have a great running game when they went to the Super Bowl in 2001. It wasn't that they were terrible. They just didn't have a standout running back. And Corey Dillon was never going to be a Hall of Famer, but he was a lot like Otis Anderson was for the Giants at the end of his career when he helped them beat the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 25. I didn't realize that Otis Anderson was one of the best running backs in the early 1980s, the mid-1980s, because he played for the Cardinals when the Cardinals were still in St. Louis before they relocated to Arizona. But Bill Parcells, and of course Bill Belichick being one of his assistant coaches at the time in the Big Apple, realized that it would be better to have a veteran like him, and I realized I completely called the wrong play because I didn't realize it was fourth down. And we still get a serviceable return back up to our 30. But anyway, they brought in O.J. Anderson to be a supplemental running back on that 1990 Giants squad, and he ended up going on to be, if I remember right, Super Bowl MVP in one of the best Super Bowls ever played. That was the famous wide right Scott Norwood play. At the end of the game, the field goal kick that missed by only
Managed to be a one-man
6 inches.
in that zone, washing away any shot at a completion.
Ball on the 31.
All right, 2nd and 10 is getting close to the 2-minute warning here. And Rutledge had it and got clocked and lost the football. So again, that bugaboo comes back to bite us.
Took a chance with that throw. There were two guys out there who might have picked it off.
He obviously thought that, he can thread a needle and get to his receiver, but I'll tell you, that is a big risk.
A risk he didn't
So
take,
3rd and 10.
in my humble opinion.
Spirals at middle.
We go to Brown, and he's got it first down. That'll take us to the 2-minute warning.
And long.
They brought on the blitz, Dan, but it was no match for this tough, talented offensive line.
Yeah, shutting down the blitz can be murder, but if you're successful, you're just about guaranteed an open man downfield.
So we're near midfield with 2 minutes to go on the clock. We still have all 3 timeouts, and we lead 7-3. We're going to get the ball to start the second half. And Redmond went nowhere.
Past the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play.
10 yards to go.
The clock is down to 1 minute and 48 seconds.
Get everybody back to the line and set up so we don't burn too much time off the clock. And getting through that first part of the line just is not something JR is able to do today.
8 yards to go.
Ball on the 47. Hey, pick it up.
And Bledsoe hit as he threw it incomplete. That'll be 4th and 8. We're going to have to punt
Stop
it.
of the game, Dan. They started off looking a bit sleepy, but they seem wide awake right now.
Well, again, Dick LeBeau's specialty was defense.
Punt for the first time this game.
So it makes sense that Cincinnati's defense is rather aggressive and taking it to us early in this game. Costello gets the punt away. I'll be taking about the 15-yard line, and here comes Corey Dillon.
Comes in and makes the tackle on the return.
The Bengals.
That is something I've noticed in
Their offense
NFL
isn't
games that
working, and fix it.
sticks in my craw a little bit too, because I had this happen to me playing Madden earlier in the week, is that kick returners and punt returners sometimes are equipped with serious plot armor. Like, I was playing the Miami Dolphins, if I remember right, on Madden 25. Or I should say Madden 13. and
A gain of 3. Was the intended receiver incomplete?
I had a guy on a straight
Threw the
bead
football
for
into
their
double
kick
coverage
return.
there. He's got
Hit
a
him
good arm, but I can't see how he
one-on-one
would've made it
right
through.
in
Yeah, I'll bet he could have found
right
greener
square in
pastures
the
elsewhere.
numbers. And dude didn't move an inch. Just literally went right through him like he wasn't there. Another guy came up, hit him from the right side. Same thing happened. Bounced right off him.
Barely gets it off.
And they got the completion. Are you kidding me? With 47 seconds to go.
Take their first time out and stop the clock.
And dude ended up taking the ball all the way to the house for a touchdown. Now, when is the last time you've seen a kick returner who is never the biggest or the strongest guy on the field take two broadside shots one-on-one with guys who are a lot bigger and not only completely eat the impact,
Picked up on the blitz right away, Dan.
but
And I think that was
deflect
the
the
key to this play's
entire
success.
You got that
player
right, Peter.
out
They
of the
were more
way,
than ready for it, and they
keep
were able
going,
to
have
buy
nobody
time
get
for
to
their
him and
general
score.
behind the
You
line.
only get that in video game football. And that's one of those weird things about the physics of this game that makes no real sense.
Incomplete pass.
And that's incomplete with 40 seconds
Was
to
in
go.
big
So
trouble
second
on
and
that one,
10.
Dan. Tossing it away looked like the smart choice to me.
Yeah, I definitely think they would have popped him for the sack otherwise. Ball on the 42.
And like I said, I've been watching football for over 40 years. I've seen a lot of crazy plays in my time.
Barely gets it off.
But I've never seen that happen. Not in high school, not in college, not in the pros.
Ball at the 42.
And if these games are supposedly all about realism, there's no way that that would fly. Oh, and he still got the first down. So they're just managing to get enough for on third downs
Use their second timeout.
to move the
Clock
chains.
shows 29 seconds left.
And my guys just can't seem to get there enough to either pick off the ball or knock it down. They go back to Dylan. They use their third and final timeout with 24 seconds to go. So they can run a play, but they're going to have to get out of bounds to stop the clock if they want to have a shot at a field goal.
It's caught near the sideline.
And they still get it to him with 19 seconds to go.
First down.
The Bengals have put together a terrific passing game today, Dan. I mean, they just can't be stopped.
When they're clicking like this, they are almost unstoppable. Clock shows 19 seconds left.
They had 19 seconds on the clock, so they have enough time to run one, maybe two plays to try and get in the end zone.
Tosses middle.
And dude still caught it.
12 seconds on the game clock.
And they spike it with 7 seconds to go. So Kitna, doing his Mad Bomber best, to keep the Bengals in it, even though he's running around the field, throwing the ball underneath, getting able to throw into pockets where I don't have any defenders, and I'm not entirely sure why. They're going to go for the field goal, and they missed it.
He missed it. Wide right.
Went straight on wide right with 2 seconds to go.
He should have had that, Dan.
Oh, absolutely, Peter. Come on. You make those in the NFL. You make those.
We're going to go to the locker room still leading 7-3, barring the improbable.
2 seconds left. Escapes the tackle. It's the end of the first half. The Patriots
So we got one half of football down, one half to go.
in anybody's game. 7-3.
And it's still 7-3. We're pretty much identical in all statistical categories. So we've got to change this around and start not playing Cincinnati's game or get them to stop playing ours.
Cunningham heads up and will kick it away to start the third quarter. Nice kickoff.
So we'll take this at our 3 by Redmond. And so he manages to wrap up his ankles and be just enough to trip him up and bring him down.
Having a field day on offense. Both passing and running the football have worked.
1st and 10. Let that play get better.
Keo spikes with the first hit, and that's usually enough to stop him.
2nd down, 7 yards to go.
Ball at the
All right,
27
we
yard
better
line.
come up with something quick here. We find Johnson, and he's got it 1st down.
They saw the blitz a-coming and shut it down.
That is so crucial if they can pick up the rush like that. Once he has enough time, the quarterback can see all kinds
All right,
of
so we
possibilities
got-
downfield.
Great job.
1st and 10 near our 40.
Barely gets it up.
And we get that with a Troy Brown, and he just got it in there enough for a 1st down. That was almost knocked down, and that could have been picked.
10 yards to go.
It's 1st and 10.
We are definitely tripping the light fantastic here, with Drew Bledsoe threading a lot of needles.
Wriggles out to the backfield. Comes in and makes the tackle. A gain of 5.
And we're now in Cincinnati territory.
5 yards to go.
It's 2nd and 5.
It's be 2nd and 5 at the Cincinnati 46. That ball tipped and almost picked.
But the pass is off the mark and falls incomplete. It's 3rd and 5.
All right, out of the shotgun, 3rd and 5. We get it to Troy Brown, wide open 1st down.
Right here. He's just
Brown 5 catches, 74 yards on the day. And more crucially, we move the chains to get a fresh set of downs.
1st and 10.
And we're keeping the clock running. If we can put points on the board here, preferably 7 of them,
Right past the line of scrimmage.
and run down the majority of the 3rd quarter, we should be in pretty good shape of locking this one up.
Ball on the 30.
2nd and 8 at the 30-yard line. Under 2.5 minutes to go. 3rd quarter.
Throws middle.
We go to Lucas. He's got it 1st down at the 15.
1st down.
The Bengals secondary is getting turned into mincemeat out there. And Dan, I don't know anybody who enjoys mincemeat.
Isn't that what they put in fruitcake? Yeah. It's 1st and 10.
All right, so we're inside the Cincinnati red zone. Under 2 minutes to go.
Spirals it middle.
We go to Lucas. He's got it again inside the 5, down at the 2.
Number 85.
And now we can take our time here.
Despite all the defenders around him.
1st and goal.
It's 1st and goal at the 2-yard line. And because Damian Woody has a propensity to jump the line, I'm going to let this clock run down a little
The
bit.
Patriots moving the ball well. 1st down.
All right, go with the last second here.
Escapes the tackle.
And Redmond still can't get in.
No gain on the play.
No gain at all.
Ball
And now we're under a minute. So I'll burn a little bit of time off the clock, but not too much. And this time he gets in for the touchdown. Second score of the day for J.R. Redmond, and more crucially, it gives us a 10-point lead with the extra point coming up.
And he got it.
Hey, 6 is 6 no matter how easy you make it look.
And now with them whiffing on that last-second field goal to close out the half.
Vinatieri lines up for the point after.
That changes things quite a bit, because now Cincinnati will need 2 scores to get back in this game. And they've only got 1 quarter pretty much to do it with.
The Patriots taking a 2-score game.
So 11 plays, 76 yards, capped by the 2-yard touchdown run by Redmond in 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Vinatieri lines up, signals, and we're ready for the kickoff. Good kick here.
And I have to admit that the stadium layout for Cincinnati in this game is probably the weakest one.
The Bengals got a decent return on
I mean,
that
there's
kickoff,
nothing
and will start
of
in very
interest
respectable
in
field position.
how this stadium is laid out. And I've never been to Riverfront. I've been in Cincinnati. I spent a couple of weeks in Cincinnati years ago. And it's a neat town, being right on the river, and there was a lot to see there. I went to Cincinnati Zoo, went to a couple of museums, checked out some stuff there. Nice town. Terrible chilly, but nice town.
Corey Dillon over his shoulder and tried to bulldoze his way through, but they pulled the plug pretty quickly there.
But the old Riverfront Stadium isn't the same as this anymore. As Kittner's got to throw it away with 2 seconds to go in the third. They had torn down Riverfront Stadium. And it was known as Synergy Field from 1999 to 2002, and it was demolished at the end of 2002.
It's 3rd and 9.
Hey, Kittner, you get some mama's boy. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Red 53.
Barely gets it off. Out on the wing. It's the
And it'll be 3 and out when we get the third or fourth quarter underway.
14.
And we lead 14-3.
4th down, 6 yards to go.
Yeah, Riverfront Stadium was one of the really, really terrible cookie cutter stadiums that was built in the 70s, in the 60s and the 70s.
17 comes in to punt after a 3 and out.
And they were awful arenas of all sorts because, again, they were all built to look the same. And they had them all throughout the Rust Belt. So you think about Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. You know, people talk about the Vet somewhat reminiscently. But I've also heard that the Riverfront was a terrible stadium. And look at this. We wouldn't even be able to go all the way here. But we got a penalty on the field. If this goes back, I'm going to be... Yeah, we did all of that and just to get a clipping penalty.
The Patriots defense were
That's 15 yards from where the play ended.
Wipe out all
So we're
that
still in
hard work.
Cincinnati territory.
Dan, they're playing pretty clean ball here. They have relatively few penalties, and that tells me just one thing. They're focused in on this game. Everybody's playing as a team.
But I remember how happy sports fans were around the country when the cookie cutter stadiums started coming down. And we started getting arenas that were more befitting of the cities they were being built in. Because one of the things that people like about stadiums is that each one's different. And I was really lucky growing up in New England. I had Fenway Park. Fenway Park, there's not a If you told somebody nowadays if they were going to build a stadium to play baseball in that was going to look like Fenway Park, that was going to be that small, that was going to be crammed into the city, that was going to have a 37-high-foot wall in left field, that the center field seats are going to be organized in a way that you can't even look at the plate when you're sitting in them, people would have said at the time, you're out of your damn mind. But then you go there and you watch a baseball game and you don't care because it's Fenway. And I've been to Wrigley Field. I can say the same thing about Wrigley. As we get to Johnson for the touchdown, and that should be the capper.
Had the time he needed to get to the end zone and was open.
So
for
20-3
the
with the extra point coming up. And that finally gives an easy pitch and catch on the straight slant route to Johnson in the end zone. So bring Vinatieri on for the point after. He's already 2 for 2 today, so whatever yips he had a couple of weeks ago, looks like they've been sorted out, which is great, because again, we needed him for the game-winning field goal last week against the Cowboys, which was not a gimme.
There's the kick. Vinatieri tacks on the extra point. The Patriots, after that score, can start to relax a bit. They're up.
So 3 plays, 43 yards in 44 seconds. Helped by Charles Johnson's excellent punt return. And then the touchdown reception. So we'll punt this one, or kick this one away rather, straight down the barrel. We'll be taking it the 8. And Andy Katzenmoyer, 1999 draft pick, there with the tackle.
But the game's not over. They need to speed up the game tempo and, above all, score.
Yeah, they do. But I'm not really inclined to let them now, am I? And Kitten is having to roll out, drop back even further, and then throw it way underneath everybody, and have his receivers come back to the ball and get it, which is not the best way to play quarterback. But he's also keeping us from being able to sack him. And he's got enough for the first down, has Corey Dillon. But at this point, I'm inclined to let him kill as much clock as he wants, because that works in my favor. And because I said so earlier, I'm sure there are going to be people who may watch this and go, how dare you, Ronan, criticize Cincinnati Chili. Well, it's not hard when you understand what Cincinnati Chili is, which is chili put over spaghetti with cheddar cheese on it. And I like chili. I like spaghetti. Not that disinclined to cheddar cheese. But you put the three of those together? No, sir. Cannot do it. And Dillon picks up 9.
Has a nice run that puts them in good shape for third down.
Third down, 1 yard to go.
And if you've never been to Cincinnati and you don't know about the Cincinnati Chili Wars, it's between two warring factions. You have Skyline Chili, and I think if I remember right, it's either Gold Star or Blue Star Chili. Go down, Corey Dillon. Damn it. And I mean, it's like Ford versus GM in Australia. It's Ford versus Chevy in the South. It's a very much a Hatfields and McCoys kind of a scrap. If you are one, you are definitely not the other. That time Lorenzo Neal goes nowhere.
Ball on the 48.
that one knocked down and complete.
Stopping the pass. Credit's got to go to the DBs who are playing some of the best.
So 3rd
football
and
they've ever
12.
It's now 3rd and 12.
I'd love to be able to get a sack on Kitten. Kitten was one of those journeyman quarterbacks that you just... I remember when he was doing well on the Seahawks, and then he was on the Bengals, and then he was on the Cowboys, then he was on the Lions for a bit, then I think he was on the Eagles for a bit too. But John Kitten seemed to be everywhere.
They've got to convert here, and they've got to work fast. 17 lines up, and this will be his 3rd punt of the game.
So now with 1:45 to go, they'll punt it away and pretty much concede defeat here with us leading 21-3. Jones will take it at the 12-yard line. Turns the corner.
The Patriots have the reins today. If they can avoid easing off, they should be able to win.
So yes, John Kitten played for the Seahawks, then went to NFL Europe and played for the Barcelona Dragons, then came back to the Bengals. He was here from 2001 to 2005. Then went to the Lions from 06 to 08, then played with the Cowboys from 2009 to 2011, and came back in 2013. And that'll be another penalty. And most recently, he has been the head coach of Lakota East High School, just outside of Cincinnati, in Liberty Township.
Those guys are so ready to rumble. Sometimes their reflexes can get the best of them.
It's now 1st and 5. Through the 3 down. 45.
Okay, Redmond finally busts off a sizable run.
J.R. Redmond didn't have to fight very hard to get the first down there.
But more importantly, he keeps the clock running. And Kitten, for his career, I mean, he threw for nearly 30,000 yards. Had slightly more touchdowns than interceptions. 169 touchdowns, 165 picks. But he was just one of those guys who was always around and always seemed to put himself in a position where if he was with the right team, he would have a decent shot of being a starting quarterback, if not being the backup.
The clock is down to 48.
And somehow seemed to win more games than somebody of his standing should have.
Straight ahead for about 3 and the 1st.
J.R. Redmond surges ahead to get the first down. Nice run.
Clock is down to 28.
So we're under 30 seconds here. We go back to Johnson, and that's enough for another first down. And then this should pretty much end it right here. So we'll move to 11-1 on the season, and the Bengals gave us more trouble than honestly I anticipated. But we get the win here at Riverfront, 21-3. So we go to 11-1 on the year. And we stand alone with the best record in the league, a game up on the Rams. The Eagles are 9-3, the Panthers are 8-4. Then we got a big log jam at 7-5. Where were the Bengals at? Bengals are 5-8, so they're miles ahead of where they were in real life in this alternate NFL universe. Meanwhile, you have the Falcons and the... Boy, talk about a team that just cannot get out of its own way. The Jets still sitting there at 2-10. So, who are we going to play next week? We are hosting the Miami Dolphins. Or no, we're going to Miami. They will host us in Week 15. But that, everybody, is Sports Saturday for this week. If you've been enjoying the content on the channel, you know how to show up by now. Be sure to tune in for Sucker Punch Sunday tomorrow as well, where we will play a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. And then this should be the final week coming up of our playthrough of Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. I know I've been saying that for a while, but we have finally hit the final 3 missions that wrap up the game. And I've been recording those already. So they'll be going out, and if I can, get them out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We may cram a little bit more in part because we realized it has taken us a lot longer to get this playthrough done than we originally anticipated. And we want to get back to doing our other projects like WTF Wednesday, get some one-day playthroughs in, and other stuff before we dive into our next big playthrough, which will be coming up later in the spring. It is coming, but we want to get back into some other content between now and then. Be sure to follow us on social media through Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Ronan's Retrocade. Help spread the word about us as we continue to build this channel and make it bigger and better. My name is Ronan. It's been great to spend the sports Saturday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming. Don't forget to move your clocks up. It's daylight savings time this weekend, and we'll talk to you an hour early, or an hour later, I should say, tomorrow for Sucker Punch Sunday. Bye.